The President of the United States is not a game player.
We're going to run the country until such time. It involved more than 150 aircraft launching across the Western Hemisphere.
U.S. forces capturing Maduro and his wife from his own country, taken to the USS Iwo Jima. President Trump posting this picture of Maduro on board. More than 150 U.S. aircrafts launching from 20 different bases across the Western Hemisphere under the cover of darkness.
When someone tells you who they are, believe them. Trump just gave a press gaggle on Air Force One, and in 37 minutes he mentioned oil 14 times. 14. He talked about taking control of Venezuela's resources. He said the United States is going to run their country. He said we need total access to their oil and other things. He said the oil companies are going in to rebuild the infrastructure and take the oil out of the ground. He said it over and over and over again. This wasn't a slip. This wasn't him going off script. This was Trump telling you exactly what this invasion was about. And if you don't believe me, stick around to the end of this video where I'll play you the actual audio of Trump saying these things himself. Because the first rule of understanding what's really happening is to go directly to the source. And the source just told you this was about oil. So let's break down what actually happened here and what Trump himself admitted on that plane. The bombs fell in the middle of the night. Early Saturday morning, planes roared over Caracas and explosions lit up the Venezuelan sky. By the time the sun rose, Trump had kidnapped the president of a sovereign nation and announced that the United States would be running Venezuela until further notice. Not occupying it, not intervening, running it. This just happened. This is real. And somehow, half of MAGA is acting shocked that the guy who promised them no new wars just launched an invasion to steal oil from a country that never attacked us. Let me walk you through what actually happened here and why the excuses you're hearing are complete garbage. According to available information, Trump ordered what he called an extraordinary military operation using 150 aircraft from 20 different bases. They bombed Caracas, captured President Nicolás Maduro and his wife, and flew them to New York to face criminal charges. Some Venezuelan civilians and military members were killed. Several American troops were injured. Now, the Trump administration says this was about drugs. That's the story they're selling. They claim Maduro was running a narco-terrorism operation and trafficking cocaine into the United States, so we had to go get him. But here's what Trump said immediately after announcing Maduro's capture. He didn't talk about saving American lives from drugs. He talked about oil. He said the United States is going to run Venezuela, rebuild their oil infrastructure at a cost of billions of dollars, and get that oil flowing properly. His exact words were that we're going to make sure it's run properly and that the people of Venezuela are taken care of. Funny how that works. We invade for drugs, but immediately start talking about controlling their oil. The legal justification for this is paper thin. Under our Constitution, only Congress has the power to declare war. There are narrow exceptions when the president can use military force without asking Congress first. But those exceptions require an imminent threat to Americans or U.S. troops. Venezuela didn't attack us. There was no imminent threat. Maduro was sitting in his palace in Caracas, not launching missiles at Florida. The Trump administration is trying to claim this was just an arrest. They say they had an indictment against Maduro from 2020 on drug charges, so this was basically a law enforcement operation with military support. That's the spin. But you don't bomb a capital city and invade a sovereign country to make an arrest. That's not how arrests work. That's war. And using an indictment as justification for invading another country sets a terrifying precedent. If the U.S. can bomb any nation and kidnap their leader just because we've charged them with a crime, then every other country on Earth gets to use that same logic. China could decide our president violated their laws and send troops to Washington. Russia could claim the same. That's not a world governed by law. That's chaos. Multiple legal experts are saying this operation clearly violated both U.S. law and international law. There's something called the War Powers Resolution that requires the president to notify Congress within 48 hours of sending troops into combat and get authorization within 60 days. Congress wasn't asked. They were informed after the bombs had already dropped. Some lawmakers got calls early Saturday morning once the operation was underway. That's not authorization. That's a courtesy notification. International law is even more clear. The United Nations Charter prohibits countries from using military force against other nations except in self-defense or with Security Council approval. We had neither. Venezuela didn't attack us and we didn't go to the UN. This is what's called an illegal use of force. Other countries are already pointing this out. Russia called it armed aggression. Cuba called it a criminal act and a violation of the UN Charter. Even some of our allies are calling for restraint. But here's the part that should worry everyone. Trump openly said at his press conference that the U.S. is going to run Venezuela. Not help transition power to a democratic government. Not support free elections. Run it. He said we're going to control the country until we can arrange what he called a proper transition, and he made it clear that means a transition to someone we approve of, not necessarily the person Venezuelans want. Trump was asked about Maria Corina Machado, the opposition leader who won the Nobel Peace Prize and has massive international support. You'd think she'd be the obvious choice to lead Venezuela after Maduro, right? Trump said no. He said she doesn't have the support or respect within the country. Translation: she won a prize Trump wanted, and now he's decided she's not good enough to run Venezuela. That's spite masquerading as policy. What Trump is describing is not liberation, it's occupation. He's talking about U.S. officials running another country's government and deciding who gets to take power based on what's convenient for us. That's not democracy. That's colonialism. And let's be brutally honest about why this happened. Venezuela has the largest proven oil reserves in the world, larger than Saudi Arabia. Trump has been obsessed with Venezuelan oil for months. This invasion happened 36 years to the day after the U.S. invaded Panama and captured Manuel Noriega using almost the exact same playbook. That operation was also sold as a drug war. But once we controlled Panama, we made sure the government that took over was friendly to U.S. interests, particularly regarding the Panama Canal. History is repeating itself, and anyone who's studied U.S. intervention in Latin America can see it happening in real time. We did this in Guatemala in 1954. We did it in Chile in 1973. We did it in Nicaragua throughout the 1980s. Every time the excuse was fighting communism or drugs or dictators. Every time the real goal was controlling resources and installing governments that wouldn't challenge American corporate interests. Iraq was sold as a war about weapons of mass destruction. There were no weapons. Afghanistan was sold as fighting terrorism and stopping the heroin trade. We stayed for 20 years and accomplished neither goal. Vietnam was sold as stopping the spread of communism. 50,000 Americans died, and we lost. Every single time, the American people were lied to about why we were really there. And every single time, it was about power and control and money. Trump just skipped the part where he pretends it's about anything else. He invaded Venezuela, and before Maduro's plane even landed in New York, Trump was on camera talking about taking control of their oil. At least he's being honest about the theft. The reaction from Congress is exactly what you'd expect. Republicans are lining up to defend it. House Speaker Mike Johnson called it a decisive and justified operation. Senator Tom Cotton said Congress doesn't need to be notified when the executive branch makes an arrest, which is an insane thing to say about bombing a foreign capital. Some Republicans are even framing this as protecting Americans from drugs, as if invading Venezuela will stop fentanyl from coming across the border. Democrats are furious. Senator Tim Kaine, Congressman Jim McGovern, and others are demanding Trump stop immediately and pointing out he violated the Constitution by not getting congressional approval. Congressman Ro Khanna said Trump rejected the constitutionally required approval process because he knows the American people overwhelmingly oppose this. And he's right. Polling shows Americans don't want another war. They don't want troops in Venezuela. But Trump did it anyway. Here's what makes this even more reckless. Trump set a precedent that other countries will absolutely use against us. Russia is already saying the U.S. invasion of Venezuela justifies their actions in Ukraine. China could point to this when making claims about Taiwan. Every authoritarian regime in the world just got handed an excuse to invade their neighbors and claim they're just following America's example. And then there's the insider trading. Someone with a newly created account on a prediction market called Polymarket invested $32,000 betting that Maduro would be out of power by the end of January. The invasion happened, and that person made $400,000 in less than 24 hours. That's not a lucky guess. That's someone who knew the operation was coming. People are speculating it might have been Baron Trump or someone in Pete Hegseth's circle, but honestly, it could be anyone close to this administration. The point is, someone profited off this invasion, and that should be investigated immediately. The Trump administration claims they're going to rebuild Venezuela's oil infrastructure and that oil companies will pay for it upfront and get reimbursed later. That's corporate welfare dressed up as humanitarian aid. American oil companies are about to make billions off Venezuelan oil, while everyday Venezuelans get nothing. And everyday Americans foot the bill for the military operation that made it possible. This wasn't about saving lives. This wasn't about stopping drugs. This was about taking control of another country's resources by force. And Trump is so confident he can get away with it that he's saying the quiet part out loud. What's stunning is watching parts of the MAGA base start to realize they've been played. Marjorie Taylor Greene, of all people, put out a statement saying Americans are disgusted with endless military aggression and foreign wars, and that MAGA thought they voted to end this. She's right. They did think that. Trump spent years telling his supporters he was the anti-war candidate, the guy who would bring troops home and stop getting involved in foreign conflicts. He said it during his victory speech in November. He said he wasn't going to start wars, he was going to stop them. He said it constantly on the campaign trail. No new wars, America first. Let other countries handle their own problems. His supporters believed him. Some of them are veterans who fought in Iraq and Afghanistan and came home disgusted by what those wars really accomplished. They voted for Trump because they thought he meant it when he said no more regime change operations, no more endless wars over oil. And now here we are. Trump just launched the most aggressive American military action to achieve regime change since the 2003 invasion of Iraq. He bombed a capital city, kidnapped a head of state, and announced we're taking over the country. That's not America first. That's imperialism. Some MAGA influencers are starting to speak out. One posted that she voted for Trump 3 times and worked on 2 of his campaigns. And if she could do it over, she wouldn't. She said she's directly responsible for what's happening now, and she's truly sorry. People are finally realizing Trump lied to them, and the damage may be irreparable. But here's the thing, this was always obvious. Trump's first term saw him surround himself with war hawks. He hired John Bolton as national security advisor. He assassinated an Iranian general. He increased drone strikes. He vetoed multiple attempts by Congress to end U.S. support for the Saudi war in Yemen. The signs were always there that Trump was perfectly willing to use military force whenever it served his interests. Anyone paying attention knew Trump's anti-war rhetoric was performance. He'd brag about not starting wars while simultaneously threatening to bomb countries and assassinating foreign officials. The difference now is he's not even bothering to pretend. He invaded Venezuela and immediately started talking about the oil we're going to take. No more coded language. No more pretending this is about freedom or democracy. Just open theft backed by military force. The cost of this is going to fall on the rest of us. American troops are already injured. More will likely be deployed if this turns into a prolonged occupation. Venezuela's vice president is demanding Maduro's release and calling him the country's rightful leader, which means there's going to be resistance. Trump said he's ready to launch a second, even larger attack if needed. He said he's not afraid of boots on the ground. That means American soldiers could be fighting and dying in Venezuela while Trump and his friends get rich off oil contracts. And for what? So Trump can claim he's tough? So American oil companies can access Venezuela's reserves? So Trump can distract from his legal problems and broken campaign promises? None of those reasons are worth a single American life, and they sure as hell don't justify invading a country that never attacked us. This is the moment where we find out if anyone in power actually believes in the rule of law. Congress has the authority to stop this. They can pass a war powers resolution forcing Trump to withdraw troops. The Senate is voting on one next week. It's sponsored by Democrats and Rand Paul, and it has a real chance of passing if enough Republicans care about the Constitution more than they care about defending Trump. But even if it passes the Senate, it needs to pass the House and survive a presidential veto. That's not happening with this Congress, which means the only real check on Trump's power right now is public pressure. If Americans make it clear they won't tolerate this, if veterans and military families speak out, if people flood their representatives' offices demanding accountability, maybe Congress will find the courage to do its job. This matters beyond Venezuela. If Trump gets away with invading a sovereign nation, bombing civilians, kidnapping a head of state, and installing a puppet government, he'll do it again. He's already threatened Iran. He's talked about military action in Mexico. He wants to take back the Panama Canal. If there are no consequences for Venezuela, every one of those threats becomes more likely. We're watching American democracy collapse in real time. A president just launched a war without congressional approval, violated international law, and openly declared he's taking over another country. And half the political establishment is either cheering or staying silent because they're afraid of Trump's base. That's not strength. That's cowardice. Real strength would be standing up and saying this is wrong, this violates everything America is supposed to stand for, and it needs to stop immediately. Real courage would be Republicans admitting Trump lied to them about being anti-war and holding him accountable. Real leadership would be Congress asserting its constitutional authority and forcing an end to this invasion. The system is designed to prevent exactly this kind of abuse of power. The founders gave Congress the power to declare war specifically because they didn't want one person making that decision. They knew presidents would be tempted to use military force for personal or political gain, so they built in checks and balances. But those checks only work if people enforce them. If you're a veteran, if you have family in the military, if you care about the rule of law or American lives, or not repeating the disasters of Iraq and Afghanistan, this is the moment to speak up. Call your representatives. Demand they pass the War Powers Resolution. Tell them you won't accept another endless war built on lies. This isn't about left or right. This is about whether we're a country governed by laws or by whatever the president feels like doing. Trump just invaded Venezuela without permission, and if we let it slide, we're saying the president can do whatever he wants. That's not democracy. That's authoritarianism. And once you give up those protections, you don't get them back. The people of Venezuela deserve to choose their own government without American bombs forcing the issue. American troops deserve leaders who won't send them to die in wars of choice. And the American people deserve a government that respects the Constitution and tells them the truth about why we're going to war. None of that is happening right now. Trump launched an invasion. He's lying about the reasons. And he's planning to occupy Venezuela for as long as it takes to install a government that will let us take their oil. That's the reality. Everything else is propaganda. The question now is what we're going to do about it. Are we going to let Trump get away with this, or are we going to demand accountability? Are we going to accept that presidents can start wars on their own, or are we going to fight to restore congressional authority? Are we going to stay silent while American troops are sent to die for corporate profits? Or are we going to make enough noise that Congress has no choice but to act? This is on all of us now. If you want to see more videos like this breaking down what's really happening and holding power accountable, hit that subscribe button. We're putting out content daily covering the stories that matter and cutting through the lies. Your support keeps this going and helps get the truth out there. Because the truth is, they're counting on you not paying attention. They're counting on people being too tired or too busy or too overwhelmed to care that Trump just invaded another country. Don't let them count you out. Share this video, talk about it. Make sure people understand what just happened and why it matters. The only way we stop this is if enough people refuse to accept it. Let me know in the comments if you're a veteran or if you have family serving, and what you think about Trump sending troops into Venezuela after promising no new wars. Your voice matters. Use it.
Now, what are your short-term next 2 weeks? What do you need from Delcy Rodriguez? You've threatened
just total access. We need total access. We need access to the oil and to other things in their country that allow us to rebuild their country.
What other things?
A lot of things. Roads that aren't built, bridges that are falling down. Yeah, bridges that are falling down, nobody can go anywhere. Venezuela right now is a dead country. We have to bring it back, and we're going to have big investments by the oil companies to bring back the infrastructure. And the oil companies are ready to go. They're going to go in, they're going to rebuild the infrastructure. So we're going to have the big oil companies go in, and they're going to fix the infrastructure, and they're going to invest money.
Is that what you would say, that we're in the business of nation building now?
We're in the business of having countries around us that are viable and successful, and where the oil is allowed to freely come out. And the oil companies are going to go in and rebuild their system. They're going to spend billions of dollars, and they're going to take the oil out of the ground, and we're taking back what they stole. Remember, they stole our property. It was the greatest theft in the history of America. Nobody has ever stolen our property like they have. They took our oil away from us. They took the infrastructure away. And all that infrastructure is rotted and decayed. And the oil companies are going to go in and rebuild it. We're not going to spend very much money at all, if anything. But the oil companies are going to go, we're going to take our oil back.
Mr. President, if you had to sum up Operation Absolute Resolve, would you say that it was about oil or it was about regime change?
It's about peace on earth.
How is it peace on earth?
Peace on earth. We got to have peace. It's our hemisphere.
Peace on earth. That's what he called it. Bombing a capital city in the middle of the night. Kidnapping a head of state. Installing American control over another country's government and resources. And he calls it peace on earth. I call bullshit. You just heard him. 14 times he talked about oil, about taking control, about American companies going in to extract resources, about running their country until we decide they're ready. He told you what this really was. And then when pressed at the end, he wrapped it in a pretty phrase and hoped you wouldn't remember everything he'd just admitted. Don't forget. Don't let them memory hole this. Trump just launched an illegal invasion to steal oil, and he told you that's what he was doing. Believe him. If you want more videos like this exposing the facts they don't want you to see, subscribe and turn on notifications. We're breaking down the real news every single day. Follow for more truth. Stay informed, and don't let them get away with it.